YouTube, if you are looking for a huge, bloody mess of a battle with lots of samurai on modern age rifle army type action, then you've come to the right place. My celebration videos continue, and this time I've got a huge Shogun 2 3v3, like I said, with mixed avatar type sets, large unit settings, lots and lots of violence. Hope you're ready for that part. You can see it here. So let's break down the tactics, see how the players did. Stay tuned, because I guarantee you, you're going to enjoy this one. YouTube, what the crap is going on? I am excited to show you this battle. You can see that the submitter of this battle is actually King of Sparta there on the Yellow Alliance, and you can see that we have the Emperor, Samurai, King of Sparta versus the enemy alliance of Charlie, Johnny Normus, and I don't like saying that second word, so I'm just going to say Yamada. So keep that in mind, keep the names in mind: Emperor, Samurai, King of Sparta versus Charlie, Johnny Normus, and Yamada. Some of the colors are somewhat similar on the Mons in this game, which means that you may be confused, but if you keep an eye on the mini-map, I will walk you through it. This is a huge battle. This is on the huge unit setting and large funds. So, I mean, this battle is enormous in scope, and it's played on a map with lots of terrain, lots of woods, and this is a combination follow the samurai versus traditional battle, and you have each type of army on each side. So this is going to be very interesting indeed. I know you're going to enjoy this, and it gives me a good opportunity to talk about some tactics that you can use both as a Follow the Samurai player and as a traditional player. Now, this is a team battle, and the tactics in team battles are very different than one-on-one, but there are a few things that apply to both. Let's start and run through this. So there is a lot that goes on in this battle, so the first thing that I'm going to do is show you the fight between King of Sparta right here, and on this side, Yamada. They do have very similar colors. I will try and keep them separate for you. Once we've finished analyzing the fight that takes place here, I will show you the interesting engagements that take place on this side of the battlefield. But this is kind of like an overhead view just to get you started. So let's go ahead and zoom in and take a look at what's going on here. I'm going to go into slow motion for just a second. I will not stay here long. Yamada is using a Follow the Samurai army composed of Vermilion Bird Force and other elite troops. You can see one of his elite troops here is the United States Marine. He does not have the 150 range on any of his troops, which is kind of interesting. It's very easy to do on these type of units. Not sure why he hasn't done it. He does have an Armstrong gun, and he's got a considerably powerful cavalry force composed of Shogunate Guard Cav, Yariki, and an Imperial Guard Cav. His general is right here, and is a mixture shooter gen with leadership. If you take a look at King of Sparta's army, again, he's the one that submitted. He's got a long, thick line of Yari Ashigar to absorb the incoming fire, while his main melee force is composed of Katana Samurai with pretty stinking good attack stats. Now, one thing that you have to be careful of is a lot of people think that if you get any type of unit into melee with a Follow the Samurai troop, that you're going to win because they stink at melee. That's not necessarily true. If you look at Yamada's force, these Vermilion Bird Force have 12 morale, 8 melee attack, 6 defense. No, that's not very high, but with that type of morale, combined with the fact that they can shoot you before entering melee, makes them a force to be reckoned with. So you do need to get a pretty significant force into them. The US Marines have 13 attack, 10 defense, 12 morale. Again, not a Katana Samurai, but quite powerful. Keep in mind, the Follow Samurai units have 150 men in the regular unit settings. Now on this they have 200 men, whereas if you look at the standard unit for a melee unit on the traditional army, it's got 160, so that's 40 less men. Let's take a look at the this Cav force real quick. There's 2 Great Guard, a Katana Cav, I believe a Fire Cav, and a Yari Cav. So both of these players up here have a substantial cavalry force. Now in the battle versus of Shogunate Guard Cav versus Great Guard, it's a close battle. Very close indeed. I want to say Great Guard has the advantage in charge and maybe a little bit of attack, but I do think that Shogunate Guard Cav is just a little bit cheaper, and I believe you can bring more of them than you can Great Guard. And plus Great Guard has to have a retainer played, whereas Shogunate Guard Cav does not. So that's a little bit of the trade-off between the two. Yariki versus Yari Cav. Yariki have higher attack, Yari Cav have higher morale. Yari Cav have higher charge. So there's a few trade-offs there between the two. In any case, the charge is taking place. I'll give you this charge via the point of view of Yamada, facing into King of Sparta. King of Sparta is the one who's charging into melee. Yamada does have troops that are hiding in the woods currently right here, but that's pretty apparent. He goes to move his U.S. Marines at the last second. Now this is a pretty suspect move, knowing that there's so much cav across the way from him. The U.S. Marine unit is a very expensive unit to leave open to a flanking cav attack. So Fall of the Samurai armies are best used whenever they're positioned to return fire. If they're not positioned to return fire, they become extremely vulnerable to cav and infantry charges. Let's go back to this main line. Let's see what's happening here. It is going to lag just a little bit until some of these units die because this is very large settings, and I haven't exactly turned down the graphics. I know I could have, but I wanted to show you this. It really doesn't lag that bad. You can see that these Yari Ashigaru do a pretty good job of absorbing the fire, but keep in mind that a Fall of the Samurai army on flat ground can get off 3, sometimes even 4 volleys before you ever reach them. So make sure to layer your troops that you're going to use as meat shields. Layer them as much as possible. If you would have put like a couple of Naginata attendants in front of those Yari Ashigaru and spread them all out a little more, it would have given him even more protection. Because if you look, his Yari Ashigaru have already routed, and right here these Vermilion Bird Force still got some shots in on his Katana Samurai. These are some good, and he's got some Nodachi Samurai here too. You can see their attack is all the way up to 30, 40 charge. They're going to absolutely eat this Vermilion Bird Force alive. If we go up in here to the close-up, you can see that there are some troops behind them laying down shots, but those Nodachi Samurai are going to have no problem just ripping right through and heading right on into the next layer of defenses, which is an Imperial Guard Cav. All across the line, the melee forces of a traditional Shogun army, like these Katana Samurai, they will defeat all these units, even though these units are not bad. But that's just, I mean, the method here. If you can get your units into the melee, they will win the melee. But if you do let them get shot, at least your good units, then you're going to die. So that's one thing you have to accept when playing a traditional army versus Fall of the Samurai, is they are going to have massive frontal firepower. You do have to be willing to sacrifice certain units in order to get your guys into combat. Now there was a large engagement over here around his U.S. Marine unit. King of Sparta committed his cavalry against a U.S. Marine, another unit, and quite a bit of cavalry from Yamada. And with all this stuff going on, the King of Sparta actually ended up losing a lot of troops here. You can see that he's still got a few units in the battle. He's got this Katana Cav and Yari Cav here. Another Yari Cav up here, but his Great Guard died in a fight. And Yamada, and I know these colors are the same, it's kind of hard to tell the difference, but Yamada has a lot of cav, plus supporting spears now, and so King of Sparta is actually losing the battle in the backfield, and this is going to make his bows vulnerable to counterattack. Right now King of Sparta took his bows, started running away towards the safety of his melee troops, but to be quite honest, all the melee troops he has left are mostly swords, and they're going to be very vulnerable to this cavalry that Yamada has left. Here, an extremely expensive Infantry de Marine unit gets caught by Katana Samurai and starts to get hacked to bits. Again, you can see that when it comes to a close-up battle, these Fall of the Samurai troops just do not fare well in general against traditional troops, which is to be expected. But again, do not underestimate some of the elite units, because you never know how well they'll fight. The Royal Marines, the U.S. Marines, Infantry de Marine, all of them can put up a better fight than what you might imagine. Here comes King of Sparta's avatar to run kind of a slightly flank cav attack there on these Infantry de Marine, trying to knock them out of the fight even quicker. It's a brutal fight. Over here, that horde of cavalry that Yamada has is now going to pay back the deed and really lay down a lot of pain on King of Sparta's remaining men. So it's kind of interesting that this battle between the two players, although they were assisted a little bit by teammates on both sides, it turns into a very Pyrrhic victory. Here's some of the bow samurai for King of Sparta that survived, trying to make this right, but again, this cavalry horde is going to have its way with these sword troops. Sword troops can do alright versus spear cav if they don't take a charge, but in this case they're definitely taking a charge, and this cavalry is just going to absolutely run them over. Anyway, so you can see that the fight became pretty desperate over here. Again, pretty Pyrrhic. I think the lessons to be learned here, I think that King of Sparta did a good job with his meat shield. He could have done even a little bit better, but it was a good job, so I mean, I don't want to ride down on that too much. I think that the player Yamada could have done well to use the hook and ladder type strategy that I've showed you before, where you set up diagonals where you have very good fire and retreat positions, and when you know you're going to be facing off against traditional samurai type avatars, you need to bring some delaying troops, troops that can be sacrificed to delay while your men reposition in the next diagonal to continue firing. This gives you the most effective setup. So I think that he could have done better in his army setup. Taking all those elite gun infantry left him vulnerable to this type of melee charge. So yes, you are extremely powerful, but you have to think about it from the standpoint, can my guys shoot down the enemy troops fast enough to keep that from happening? So in any case, interesting battle on this side, but like I said, you can tell that it's completely Pyrrhic. Both players are left with almost nothing, so that the remainder of the fight is actually taking place on the other side of the battlefield. Now let's step back in time and check out what happened over there and break down the battle on that side. I'm going to show you this just one more time to remind you what we just watched. We just watched King of Sparta versus Yamada. We're now going to watch the Emperor and Samurai versus Charlie and Johnny Normus. Johnny Normus is going to be playing as a traditional samurai army, as is Samurai. The Emperor and Charlie 2009 are playing as Follow the Samurai armies. So once again, on the other side of the map, we have an equal balance of traditional versus Follow the Samurai, which can make a very interesting matchup in team battles, as well as in 1v1. But I think it creates a very interesting dynamic in team battles, as the traditional armies tend to be faster, more rushy, and the Follow the Samurai armies, of course, have the firepower and the combination of melee and shooter units. Also, traditional armies tend to have the morale advantage. So, Samurai brings an army that is pretty interesting. It's very, very spear heavy, but a lot of it is Naginata troops. But I'll show you what he's got. He's got 2 Matchlock Ashigaru. I don't honestly understand these guys. I don't think they're going to be of a lot of value. But in any case, he's got 2 Yari Ashigaru, 2 Matchlock Ashigaru, a couple of Yari Ashigaru up front. He's got several Naginata samurai. He's also got a couple of Naginata monks. And then, interesting, he's got this, he's got a Marathon monk. And the reason he's brought them is probably for their second wind ability, which takes the fatigue level of all your men back down to fresh from whatever level it was at. They could be completely exhausted and it goes back down to fresh. Very useful in a type of battle where you know your guys are going to be run ragged. He's got a few Yari Samurai over here, no doubt for their speed. Actually a pretty useful unit. And he's also got this Bulletproof Samurai. This thing is maxed out. Huge defense, good attack, good morale. It's also got stand and fight. This unit is very tough. It's got 10 armor as well. A unit not to be underestimated, not to be trifled with. So he's got a traditional rushing type melee army. On the other side, you got the Emperor, who's got a shooter army composed mainly of Imperial infantry with a couple of elite units, 2 Katana Kachi, a Tosa rifleman, and then his cav is some, I think a Shogunate Guard cav, and maybe one other. He's also got an Armstrong gun, and then a couple of cheaper infantry back in the back to help protect it. Now over here, Johnny Normus combines his troops with the Follow the Samurai army, or sorry, Johnny Normus is the Follow the Samurai army. My bad. Charlie is the one with the traditional army. So Charlie combines his troops with Johnny Normus here in the center in order to prevent a double teaming from taking place. He has his bows out in front of the gun units. He's got a lot of bows. These are basically some bow Ashigaru, but I do believe he's got a bow samurai, and I want to say there might be a Daiki samurai somewhere in the mix. He's also got this samurai, or Charlie's actually got the samurai hero unit. I don't really recommend that unit. Charlie's Follow the Samurai army has a couple of elite units, some U.S. Marines and French Marines, but it's mostly composed of Vermilion Bird Force, which once again, high morale, pretty good shooting stats. And then he's got some cav back here, which is composed of Yari Ki. And then if you can see right here, Charlie has a lot of Katana Samurai, a lot of them. I think about 6 units of them. And then he's also got some, or actually more than 6 units. He's got a Tetsubo Monk hero, and I mean he's got a lot of Katana Samurai, so there's a lot of melee and shooter troops, but there's also a lot of melee and shooter troops on the other side. These guys are in a compact formation, whereas the opponents are in a more spread out formation. I am going to fast forward a little bit till we get to the action, it's going to be a little bit laggy in the fast forward, so I do apologize for that. But as the battle starts to play out on the other side of the field, this will calm down a little. So I'm going to fast forward for just another second. Like I don't even know if the fast forward's working because I got fraps on, and with this many, a big lag factor there. Alright, I'm going to just take it back down into play because I think that, this is the point where it's going to, make the most difference anyway. In case you missed it last time, this was the big fight over here that got started where Johnny Normus lent some troops to Yamada. In any case, that's not where we're going to focus, but you can see that he is lending a lot of troops up here. So over here, up on the flank, we've got the Emperor, who has set up some Shogunate Guard Cav in a good position to make a downhill charge, and he's moving up a flanking force of 2 Katana Kachi and a Tosa Rifleman. So I'll move these in. Again, sorry for the little bit of lag that's going to take place here. It won't continue as some of the guys start to die. I mean, it's not lagging from the standpoint that even with fraps on, I'm getting, like 20-something frames per second. But the lag is going to be the animations. Probably the animations on the individual units will lag a little bit, regardless of the frame rate of what I'm getting, just because there's so many here. Okay, so you can see the Armstrong guns firing off here. Again, these, for those of you not super familiar with them, they're the breech-loading cannons. They can fire up and over your troops pretty easy. These guys are very devastating if used properly. I'm not sure how many kills the Armstrong guns. These guys already have 185. I do believe there's some other Armstrong guns in this game. One on Yamada's side, and then I believe that the Emperor has one. But neither one of those amounts to much. I think this one gets the most kills. It's now up to 221.
Running from the battlefield, sir.
Alright, so it looks like the Emperor and Samurai are making a move towards the center. You can see the status of the battle up here. It's pretty much in full swing. So this side definitely started a little bit slower, but ends up becoming an extraordinarily interesting fight that takes place across several phases. The Emperor is moving up a line of shooter troops. You can see that he's got them all lined up here. This is mostly Imperial infantry, and they're being moved up against the Vermilion Bird Force of Johnny Normus. And then on the flank, right now, the Emperor is in way better position than Johnny Normus, but Johnny Normus is moving some very good units up here. He's got a Tosa Rifleman with 150 range, of course. He's got this Ki Hatai moving into position. Pretty good unit here, not great, but pretty good. And then he's also moving up an Infanterie des Marines and a U.S. Marine. The U.S. Marine, though, strays within the range of the Emperor's troops and takes a considerable number of losses right there. It takes 25% losses, down to 150 men. That was definitely a micro mistake on the part of Johnny Normus. I do believe right here, though, if you look at the cones of fire coming off of the Emperor, he does have pretty superior positioning, but he does walk forward to begin the engagement with Johnny Normus, and first shots in this game can be pretty critical. It's not always a dead give, but it can be pretty critical. Right here, the artillery fire takes its toll on the morale of these men, and these Imperial infantry are already wavering. They're also under suppressive fire, which is kind of like the war cry of Fall of the Samurai. You can hear the artillery screaming overhead, and right there it takes some hits. That artillery definitely has a devastating morale effect. So his guys are using suppressive fire, but they're also under suppressive fire. So you can see a pretty brutal gunfight that's broken open here. However, I think due to the artillery, the Emperor is going to take quite a beating right here, a pretty savage beating to be sure. But there's going to be quite a bit of gunfire exchanged. Where'd those Armstrong guns go? Let's take a look and see what their kills are up to. I hear the thing shooting, but now it's getting hard to spot them. Here they are. They're up to 370 kills. Now on the flank, we've got a katana charge by the Emperor. What he's trying to do here is pin down all this elite infantry of Johnny Normus, and Johnny Normus does the smart thing here and retreats. He had his guys set up in such a way that they were able to retreat to the safety of a whole bunch of melee units. So he's actually bringing these 2 Katana Kachi into the waiting arms of the melee units of his teammate. So this was a good use of teamwork here. And here comes the Shogunate Guard Cav of the Emperor right into the spear units of Charlie. And Charlie's spear units are going to teach those guys a lesson in pain and suffering. You do not want to get your cav units obviously mixed up with the spear units. They will get destroyed quickly. That was some very expensive cav. He should have pulled them out of this fight. He did not. By pulling them out of the fight, he could have made use of them by wrapping around this flank quickly and causing a lot of trouble. But he did not get around the flank. And these Katana Kachi and those cavalry are going to take an absolute throttling as they are completely and totally outnumbered by the forces of Charlie. Now over here, the fight continues. It did not go well in the shooting fight, as I showed you for the Emperor, and so at this point, Samurai is going to make a full-fledged charge at the troops of Johnny Enormous, but Johnny has not taken a huge amount of damage, so he's going to be able to put a lot of shots down. However, this little fight over here did effectively turn the flank of Johnny Enormous, and so some of his troops are still repositioning. Some of his troops are out of position. You can see this Vermilion Bird Force actually facing the wrong direction. These Infantry de Marine are shooting into this melee blob, and his U.S. Marines are just now getting into position, but they're a little bit late because here comes a huge ball of Katana Samurai. Now this Katana Samurai is being countercharged by Charlie, so it is slowed down, but a lot of it gets through, finds its mark, and starts destroying these Vermilion Bird Force U.S. Marines, and there is a lot of them. And so this is where I showed you the intro screen. This is a massive Katana Samurai charge into rifle troops. I found this part of the battle to be very interesting because it just kind of shows you the devastating power that the traditional units have whenever they get into close combat with the Fall of the Samurai units. So you're going to get a very bloody fight over here. There's going to be a whole lot of death going on, but the Katana Samurai, of course, will get the better of that fight and murder many, many rifle troops here. There's also some Yari Samurai engaged in there, it looks like, but all of these guys are going to be very tough in melee compared to the Fall of the Samurai troops. So you can see the Vermilion Bird Force routing there, and I would expect the U.S. Marines probably won't be too far behind that. They're down to 62 men. On the opposite flank, Samurai made interesting use of some Naginata monks, the Marathon monks and his Bulletproof Samurai, along with some Yari Samurai. He used their speed to run down a bunch of the men of Charlie on this flank, and he also ran down some of Johnny Enormous's troops that were helping out in the fight between Yamada and King of Sparta. So the speed, actually, of those troops became very handy. So Marathon monks are a fast unit with the second wind ability, and then the Bulletproof Samurai and the Yari Samurai possess the rapid advance capability. So this allowed him to advance quickly on the flank of his enemy and really cause a whole lot of pain. Here you can see those Naginata warrior monks coming through, and he's also got his Bulletproof Samurai. They're going to get into it with these Vermilion Bird Force here, and once again, death and destruction quickly ensues. So on the flanks, Samurai has done a good job, or on this flank at least, of really ramping up Charlie and Johnny Enormous and putting a lot of pressure on them. On the other flank, however, the Emperor has really gotten beat back hard. You can see that he completely lost the fight in this vicinity, and then he allowed his rifle troops to get way too close to these leftover melee troops. He could have shot these guys from a distance. Always keep your distance from melee troops. In this vicinity, even though Samurai broke through with all those Katana Samurai and caused a lot of damage, kudos to Johnny Enormous, who fell back with his remaining units and shot that melee blob, and it does not take long for the Fall of the Samurai units to make up a whole heck of a lot of kills. He's got Tosa Riflemen and other units back here just absolutely unloading on these melee blobs, and you can see the Samurai paid the price, lost all of his men in that vicinity. So now he is winning on this flank, but he lost even though he had an amazing charge on this flank. And right now, Charlie has busted through on this flank as well. So the fight is pretty even. King of Sparta had a few units up here. I don't know if that's a glitch and in real life they routed, or if he's just AFK right now. And then also same thing right here with Samurai. Not sure if he just forgot about these guys or if it's a glitch. However, it looks like at this point the Emperor has some leftover shooting troops. He's moving them up, and the battle really is in favor of the Yellow Alliance at this point, or I guess they show up as blue on your mini-map. They were the Yellow Alliance on the loading screen. You can see what's left here. I do believe that someone loses connection. The replay doesn't play all the way to finish, but I will be able to get you a statistics screen. So this was an interesting fight. So what are the takeaways for you as a player if you're wanting to get better at team battles? So I think that both teams did a good job of diversifying the type of troops that they brought. They both had a large variety of troops, both Fall of the Samurai and traditional units, and they had a variety even within those two genres. And I think that the people who were using the Fall of the Samurai armies did a pretty good job of getting into combat quickly. Although I do think that Samurai probably could have done a little bit better in his frontal assault. Instead of bringing those matchlock Samurai, he should have brought a bunch of attendant units or something that would have been more cost-effective at soaking up some of the fire. Or at least bring some bows or something where he could have whittled down some of the Fall of the Samurai troops. I think that the Emperor was a little too hasty in some of his attacks and got his units killed a little bit too quickly, but you can see that overall the battle ended up working out for his team. So one thing that I think you can do in team battles to be extra careful is to make sure that you don't allow yourself to get double teamed either. And I don't think that any one particular player in this battle did allow themselves to get double teamed, at least not on purpose. There was definitely some teammates helping each other out, and that's something I would also highly recommend. If you're playing a teammate or a team battle, don't be a lone wolf. Communicate with your teammates, ask them where they need help, and lend your units as needed. Because lending those extra units and just winning a few little decisive points can end up changing the tide of an entire battle. So it really makes a difference. Whereas sometimes, if you make a bad decision and you don't help a teammate in time and they end up losing, then you're going to end up getting your flank wrapped up on pretty hard. So when it comes to traditional armies versus Fall of the Samurai, again, make sure you bring layers of meat shield. It's not going to work like you're going up against matchlocks. You're going to need more than one layer of meat shields. Typically pretty smart to bring a couple of attendant units out front, spread very thin, and then behind them put some Yariashigaru because they'll make up some numbers. And then behind that you can have the main meat of your melee force, or you can use an all-attendant distraction force up the center so that you can get your main troops around the flank. Because even though the attendant units are a distraction force, they're going to be enough men that your opponent cannot ignore them. So when you're playing a Fall of the Samurai army, what do you do to counter those traditional armies? Like I said, use the distance and firepower of your men by using what I call the whole hook and ladder strategy, whatever you want to call it, kiting, fire and retreat, but set up a diagonal like I've showed you in videos past, where your men have the ability to fire and retreat. I guess that we're not going to get a results screen. I thought that we would. So I guess the battle dropped before the results screen. I did keep an eye on some of the things that went on there. I know the Bulletproof Samurai got a ton of kills, and so did some of the other interesting units there. I hope you all enjoyed this video. I thought it was a really good one. I think it was fun to watch, on top of illustrating a few good points. So it may not have been like the most professional battle ever, but then again, I'm not a professional, so it's not like I know. I'm just saying, some of you may criticize some of these videos, but these are my fans. I thought the battles were fun. I enjoyed these, and I hope you enjoyed it. Now, my last celebration video is going to be a little bit of something special. The future Miss Carthage is going to do a video with me for the final of my 20th or 20K subscriber celebration series here that's taken a long time to finish. I hope you all are ready for that. And then soon I will be back with some Rome Total Realism campaign to finish the SPQR campaign. Tell me what else you want to see. I am going to start the new show. I think that I'm going to start putting out an episode of it every Tuesday, and I think that it's going to be called something to the order of, Heir's Total War Tuesdays. And that show is going to be where I take a fan replay, break down the tactics, tell you what they did well or did not do well, and give you some advice on how to improve your game, and then the comments section becomes your forum to tell me whether or not I got it right, or to add your own advice to help out those players. I do want it to be a constructive forum, not a negative forum. If you do want to leave, constructive criticism, that's completely welcome, but again, keep it constructive. So stay tuned for that. It is going to start next Tuesday. It's Heir's Total War Tuesdays. I hope you're excited for it. Heir of Carthage, signing off for now.